I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things. Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. Think about it. The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing. The show goes on!
It's Wednesday night and fantasy football is on the agenda. Grab a seat and let's get down to business. It's time for the Fantasy Boardroom. Here's your host, Tycoon.
And welcome to the Fantasy Boardroom. I am your host and fantasy CEO, Tycoon. We're here, as always, for another great meeting of the Fantasy Boardroom. And this week we have a guest returning, or rather, not a returning guest, but once again, we have a guest. And I am thrilled to bring to you today the editor-in-chief of Football Absurdity, the Reactionaries podcast co-host about action movies, NorCal King. Go 49ers, go Giants. Not King so much, but we don't have to worry about that right now. Fantasy football common sense haver, Jeff, 107 wins in the NL West, Krisko.
That is me. Hello. How's it going?
It is going tremendous. I mean,
I'm loving that intro. We were talking, it's a long day. I am ready to run through a wall. It hits different when you're on the show.
It is. The energy changes as soon as that red light goes on, I swear.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Dude, couldn't imagine somebody better, honestly. And not just because we're fans, but it's very appropriate because of Northern California ties. I'm originally from the Bay Area. I'm a huge 49ers and Giants fan, as you are. We are going to be a little bit distracted during the beginning of the show because as Giants fans, we have a very vested interest in the National League wildcard game currently airing. Hopefully we're able to pull a couple viewers from that program because, well, I mean, even I can't look away and we're on live.
Yeah. I was going to say, we both kind of have it off screen. So if we both exclaim at a certain point, that's what people can know is going on.
You know something big has happened.
Yeah.
Or if you just see the occasional glances, over to
the glances to the side. That's why I really have the reflective glasses to cover up the the glances to the side.
Hey, whatever works. Yeah, just to your head a little. Boom.
That's right.
So we did miss last week, for which I apologize. We did not have a meeting following week 3, but we are back in action. Now, quick recap. First couple of episodes this season, or now that we're in season, we spent a bit of time discussing how this fantasy season was off to a bit of a strange start. Big names not hitting, names nobody had, nobody was even thinking of having big weeks, awful injuries as usual. So just a lot of teams that looked really strong post-draft. Again, we see this a lot, but it felt like more than usual. We're off to some really bad starts. There were a lot of really good teams off to 1-2, 0-3 starts. But this week, feels like we're seeing a bit of a market correction. So that is going to be the focus of our meeting this evening, market correction. And with that, we're really kind of done introing. If you're a viewer, you kind of have a feel to the format of the show. So we're just going to kind of dive right in.
Let's go.
So the first section, as always.
I was going to say, I didn't want to step on your toes. I didn't know if I was supposed to chime in there or anything. Okay.
No, jump in whenever.
Okay. I felt like you were waiting for me to say something and I let you down, but yeah.
No, as a broadcaster, I'm trying to do a little bit better in terms of, the ums, the uhs, so I'm just leaning into just a little bit of extra silence rather than sound like a blah, 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 idiot. So
eat the silence a little bit. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anybody. I gotcha.
It's a lot easier to edit out for the audio-only format of the podcast as well. So, as always, we're going to start with performance reviews. And to kind of lead Jeff into this, I'm going to go ahead and start us off here. Start with our player this week, and that is going to be Saquon Barkley. So we thankfully had yet another wonderful showing from him. He had 52 rushing yards with a touchdown. He had 5 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown. Had over 90% snap percentage and usage in high leverage situations because, well, he was on the field for over 90% of snaps, scored the game-winning touchdown in overtime. They really kind of rode him on that drive. Very encouraging sign for Saquon, especially those that did invest an early draft pick in him and were concerned after the last 2 weeks. We told you not to be, but still understandable to a degree. We also told you to go buy him after week 2, and that window is now over. So we do hope that you took advantage of that. We're able to get yourself Saquon at a discount. If not, sorry, because we didn't get to say it after week 3 because there was no show, we have to say it now. And Saquon is back.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if he ever left too much. I think he was getting eased back in.
No, he really didn't leave. It's public perception, I guess, is the way that I'm using this term in terms of being back.
Yeah, it was funny because Saquon was an interesting case because all offseason it was reports of, hey, he might miss a couple weeks to start the season. Yeah, and people were like, yeah, if you draft him, he's going to miss a couple weeks, no big deal. And then as we got closer to the season, it got to be like, oh, he's going to miss a couple weeks. We should probably move him down the ranks. And I was looking around going, we knew this was going to happen. Like, we've been saying it all offseason. Why are we worried now that it's staring us in the face?
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, the fact that he was still active the first 2 weeks was encouraging. So,
oh, yeah.
I mean, I still rolled him out simply on the chance that he's Saquon, one big play could make a great day. I mean, that's all it would take. And even a lesser used or even slightly hobbled Saquon, in my view, very capable of that. So I took the risk. Didn't really work out the first 2 weeks. No big deal. Now we have what we have. Yeah,
we in the first 2-3 weeks, because it's our entire sample size, we completely panic about what's happening in front of us, again, because it's our entire sample size. But when you look back on this season, you're hardly going to remember the first couple of weeks of Saquon because he's going to spend the next 3 months absolutely smashing through defenses for you. But in the moment, it's so scary and we start to panic. So people don't remember that AJ Brown missed a couple games at the beginning of last year. And now that he's missing time again, people are panicking. It's the same thing with Saquon. Like, the season is long, it ebbs, it flows, just relax.
We all have very short-term memory, extreme recency bias as the season goes along. I mean, you just get so caught up in the here and now, it's hard to, you lose the forest through the trees. It's disappointing.
I think a lot of that too just has to do with like DFS stuff. We only have so many bites at the apple. And if you have disappointing weeks out of guys that shouldn't be disappointing for you, it tends to magnify the problem because you're literally having negative financial repercussions to what's going on. So it's a long season, folks. It's fine. Just relax.
It is. Yeah. And that's why, unless you really are really sharp, be modest in the money you're investing in DFS.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and we're going to give you advice, but I wouldn't recommend throwing out $100 plus a week if you're not an expert at this.
Yeah, and I'm trying something this year. I'm trying to see if I could be a better analyst. I did not do best balls this offseason. I am not doing DFS this year. And I'm focusing entirely on redraft because I don't want to have a take lock into something that I'm financially invested in and give poor advice to, my readers and my listeners because of something I want to have happen or something I wish was happening. So I'm actually trying an experiment this year because this offseason, there was a big argument I got in about, you can't trust anybody who doesn't put their money on the line. Well, you can't trust somebody who does put their money on the line because then their advice is tainted by their money. So
bingo.
I'm trying a big old experiment this year. So it's difficult, but I'm trying it.
Well, it is difficult not to play for sure. But there is something to be said about that, and actually kind of a little congruence to DFS is if you're familiar with Chris Robin, Detroit Beastie, he was on here right before week 1, a little bit of a DFS primer for the audience. And I'm talking with him, his sole focus is DFS, and it has helped him to become a better analyst in that space. I mean, we kind of had a discussion of, if you're jack of all trades but expert of none kind of thing. So that's how you really become strong in an area, is to solely focus and dedicate yourself to that area instead of trying to be kind of good at everything, be very good at one thing.
Yeah, and that's my focus, is to help the 95% of fantasy football players who aren't on fantasy Twitter. So,
Bingo.
if I'm focusing on redraft, I have to focus on redraft. I can't tell them about Jordan Akins. Jordan Akins doesn't matter to them.
Jordan Akins doesn't matter a whole lot to me either, though, to be fair.
That's true. There's some people with tight end premium leagues who are slamming the table right now. He's a great tight end 3.
I'm not a big fan of the tight end premium leagues. I kind of intentionally still forego using more than the single tight end that's required just out of sheer disdain. Also just for the position in general, because if it's not George Kittle, I don't want it in the position in life. So when it comes to fantasy, that small pool also just turns me off.
See, I love bad tight ends. I think it comes from baseball. I love bad pitchers too. Give me a bad starting pitcher who he has the stuff, but his control is all over the place. Like, I was a huge Robbie Ray fan for years. And, I have the receipts. If you go back to 2019, I was the only one who had Mike Gesicki in his top 10. But everybody was like, "Oh, Mike Gesicki's trash. He's garbage." And
that's what I said too.
Yeah,
so, I wasn't with you. I was one of the others. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you want me to talk about my team,
Yes.
my performance review team. So,
Bingo.
I want to talk about the Arizona Cardinals in so much as they're getting excels in their performance review in all categories. They lead the league in points scored. They're first in the NFC in point differential, second in the league behind the Bills, who have shut out 2 teams. So there's no shame in being behind them. But for fantasy, which is what we care about, quarterback 2, a number 1 running back, a number 2 running back, 3 top 36 wide receivers, and the number 13 tight end. They are absolutely steamrolling for their fantasy managers. And the only disappointment is DeAndre Hopkins, because everybody else is too good. He can't get the Houston Texans target volume. He can't get the target volume he had last year. So he's getting, fewer targets on the year. And right now, Hopkins has, in 4 games, he has 25 targets. I mean, this time last year, we're looking at 40, 44, like those big target volumes. And he's the only disappointment. And it's because he's a victim of success. And at the same time,
he's been less than 100%.
I was going to say, at the same time, he's been dealing with the ribs injury. And I think that bodes even better for the Cardinals going forward, because they just kind of molded the offense away from him. They didn't fall apart without him. Like, you mentioned George Kittle. When George Kittle goes out, the 49ers offense just turns to ribbons. And the Arizona offense is so varied and powerful right now. I mean, you have James Conner scoring 4 touchdowns in 2 games in the Kenyon Drake role from last year. It's just, they're passing every test. They are cruising. So my performance review for them through 4 weeks exceeds expectations.
I would have to agree. Definitely exceeds expectations. I think everybody expected Kyler to come in and have a great year. Very popular QB1 pick. And Hopkins was, like you said, maybe the disappointment. But even in the disappointing state, he's still been serviceable multiple of those, or in multiple weeks. So
yeah, I mean, we have the resurgence of AJ Green and the much ballyhooed and hoped for breakthrough for Christian Kirk happening at the same time on the same team. Like, they can't be stopped. I'm so scared for the 49ers this week.
I don't think they're going to be stopped by our secondary, sadly.
No, not
part
even
of
close.
Me. I'm not a big Cliff fan, so part of me still feels somehow Cliff is going to cliff something up. I'm still skeptical on the entire season going at this type of just torrid pace that they're keeping up, not in terms of rate of play, but just scoring, production, efficiency.
I mean, how much of that is Kyler though? That's the thing.
A lot. He's
Like-
taking that big step this year.
Like Russell Wilson overcame Brian Schottenheimer forever. Like he could, if your quarterback's good enough, then you can overcome a bad offense. I mean, we saw on the Manning cast, if you've been watching that, Peyton Manning would just pretend like his helmet mic wasn't working so that he could just call his own
I
plays.
love it.
So
I wish every quarterback would do that more.
I was gonna say, Cliff Kingsbury called Kyler Murray and was like, "Hey, do not watch Monday Night Football. I don't need you getting ideas."
No, definitely good ideas, Kyler. That would be a lot of fun. I would love to see a 2-minute drive with you calling your own plays and just telling Cliff to F off.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Be tremendous. Would love to see him and Lamar do that. Back-to-back drives.
That would be a lot of fun.
All right, so the final performance review we're going to jump into now is the position group. And this week we're going to focus just on running backs. Last time we kind of went through all the major positions because it was just such a funky week in fantasy scoring. But this week, to tie back to the theme of our episode, it's been a big return to normalcy. We have seen a market correction. So when you look at the top 20 in PPR scoring for running backs this week, it's largely filled with names that we know and names that are being deployed in a lot of lineups. Outside of maybe Kenny Gainwell, although in a lot of leagues he probably was used, and Jeremy McNichols, these guys were used. Now, maybe some guys pre-season or even early on we didn't expect to stay up in this realm, such as the aforementioned Connor, or the shining star, the 9th-year breakout that is Cordero Patterson. But again, these guys have earned their way into lineups by week 4, so at least people got usage out of them, even if these weren't guys we expected before the season to be up there. So it felt good to see these, quote unquote, expected players there at the top of the leaderboards. So you're not seeing all your touchdowns disappear into black hole of fantasy. And even for those big names with certain poor performances, guys like Kamara, well, Kamara's actually probably a little bit of a concern. Mixon, though, injured. We have reasons why their performance was lower. So we don't need to have extreme concern other than those direct reasons, but it's not like we're left wondering. We know exactly why they output the low output in that given week. And that'll wrap up our performance reviews. We'll jump into our stock rising category, which we're going to let Jeff kick off. Who are your risers? Whose stock is up?
Stock up. First one I mentioned that I love bad tight end, so I'm going to start with a bad tight end. It's Dalton Schultz. So last offseason, if you think back before 2020, everybody was all hot and bothered about Blake Jarwin. And then in the first game, Blake Jarwin tore his ACL, ended up out for the year. So we did what some people, including myself, dubbed the Blake Jarwin flowchart, which is just transferring all the love and hype from Blake Jarwin to Dalton Schultz. Well, now Blake Jarwin's back, and Dalton Schultz has his own hype train. He is standing on his own 2 legs. He has at least 6 targets in 3 out of 4 games. He's caught 6 balls in 3 out of 4 games, and he's producing like a tight end that doesn't leave your lineup. He's producing like the Noah's Fants or the Dallas Goddards of the world. These guys that aren't quite your TJ Hawkinsons or Mark Andrews or George Kittles or Travis Kelce's, Darren Waller's. I think I named all of them. But he is a guy right now that I have no interest in removing from my lineup. And he was a, hey, if you whiff on Jonnu and if you whiff on these higher end guys, Tyler Higbee, take a shot on Dalton Schultz. And he's leapfrogged all of them. He is number 4 right now in PPR. So you're just looking for targets at tight end, really, and touchdowns as well. 3rd in touchdowns. And I believe he is, and he's 10th in targets, 9th in targets, tied with Jared Cook. So, I mean, his stock is on the way up, and at a position like that, where if you don't have one of the top 5 or 6, you're kind of grasping at straws. That's a good guy to snag onto. And he's only rostered, his rostership has gone up actually, but he's not rostered in a lot of leagues. So you can go out and find him.
Yeah, after this morning, I'm sure that number skyrocketed.
Yeah, I wrote the numbers down yesterday, realizing that it was going to change this morning. So that's why I kind of hesitated there.
And there's little to suggest it's going to slow down too, because even in the pass-happy game against the Buccaneers or the last couple of weeks where it's been primarily focused on the run, I mean, he's producing. It doesn't seem to matter what the game script is, what the game plan is. He is kind of penciled in for his role.
He's a part of it. No matter what they
Yeah.
do, that he is a part of it. So you just want a tight end who's is going to be involved, because that'll stop him from goose egging you.
Right.
When we tell people, because we're big on Football Absurdity, we're big into tight end streaming. We say, look for a guy who's going to get you 4 for 40, and occasionally will get you a touchdown. Don't chase the touchdowns, chase the 4 for 40s, because those are tight end 12 games. And then if he scores a touchdown, he vaults up to a better week. So if you're streaming, that's what you're looking for, is the 4 for 40.
Right. Because, I mean, you're taking the gamble on a touchdown with any of them. So at least give yourself some level of a floor.
Exactly. And that's why you're chasing the targets.
All right, well, who else you got?
So I also have Zach Moss, which is interesting because I had Zach Moss listed as a bust in our draft kit this year. Actually, more specifically, the bust was, I believe the way I phrased it was, any godforsaken running back in the Buffalo Bills backfield. And Zach Moss has started to separate himself, not by touches, not by overwhelming production, but where on the field he is touching the football. He has 5 touchdowns in 3 games, and you can't really chase touchdowns so much. But when you're looking at a guy that you were taking as a running back 40, running back 45, kind of an afterthought, you saw him slipping into double-digit rounds in most drafts.
Oh, yeah.
He's reached this kind of tier where he's even with guys like a Leonard Fournette or a Tony Pollard who went much higher, and also guys who slipped like Chris Carson, who I'll talk about in a second, and James Conner, who kind of went in this range where he is a guy that you can put into your flex every single week, and he's a lot like those back end tight end like I was talking about, where he'll get you some points and he has a good shot at a touchdown. And the Bills paid Josh Allen, and Josh Allen suddenly doesn't rush in the 5 anymore. So I wonder if those two things are correlated and are why, Zach Moss is just pounding the ball in the red zone. And this split is normal. This is what happened with Zach Moss and Devin Singletary last year as well,
Right.
except when it got into the 5, then that was Josh Allen territory. Well, if that's Zach Moss territory, then you're looking at a top 25 running back that you got at running back 40 prices. That's also a running back you probably want to sell, if I'm being honest with you. Stock is going up, but you probably want to try to cash that in for maybe a frustrated Miles Sanders owner or somebody who thinks they're selling high on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That might be a decent swap for you to try to make Zach Moss plus something to get an upgrade there.
That's not a bad idea. I would really agree with that one, because there are a lot of people still very, very skeptical of CEH and think we've seen the best couple of weeks of his season. If you can find somebody, I would even throw a little more on Moss if somebody is still trying to do that based on name value. So
yeah,
I love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, the low-hanging fruit for the first one, and that is Cordero Patterson. His stock is absolutely rising after a 3-touchdown performance against Washington. Another guy that a lot of people are looking to sell high. And while I certainly believe that this rate of efficiency is not going to keep up, I do think he has been so good and so efficient with the touches he's gotten. I think his snap percentage and usage is actually going to increase a little bit. I mean, imagine that. A team rewarding a player for playing well, giving him more touches. Now, no guarantees. We see a lot of NFL coaches do a lot of goofy things, but I'm going to follow that logic on this one. And also, I only see his efficiency really slowing down because it's been otherworldly in terms of touchdown scoring in particular. So, that's going to take a little bit of a hit. But I wish I saved the tweet. There was one I saw last night that Patterson would still have something like 56 PPR points even if he removed all 5 touchdowns. So he still is very useful even without his high rate of touchdown scoring.
Yeah, I mean,
So I wouldn't sell high on him. I think you just take the waiver wire gift that you were given and you ride it till it's done. That's my opinion.
That's what I kind of have to agree, because everybody's saying you should sell high on Cordarrelle Patterson, but nobody's buying.
Bingo. Means you're not going
That's
to
the
get anything.
problem. If everybody's saying sell this guy, who is buying? It's basically saying, hey, figure out who the sucker in your league is and pawn him off, pawn Cordarrelle Patterson off on him. But that's just part of the brain genius of Twitter. And another part of it is everybody saying, Cordarrelle Patterson won't be this efficient. Well, of course not. You'd have to be crazy to think that he's going to be this efficient. But what you said nails it on the head. He's going to become less efficient as his touches go up, and they're going to meet in the middle. And his touchdowns look good this last weekend. So I don't know how unsustainable they will be, because they were impressive. They weren't Juwan Johnson's week 1 where he was standing with nobody within 5 yards of him for a touchdown. These were quality touchdowns. So,
which is why I went with leaning into the logic that, that level of play will be rewarded with more play.
Oh yeah, because who are they going to give the ball to? Mike Davis at his 1.1
it's also
yards
a big
per carry.
Anti-Mike Davis take too. That's a big part of this.
Yeah, he's fully back to being a pumpkin after tricking us last year.
I did not buy into that really at all last year up until about, I think I had a running back injury, so I had to make a move for somebody. So I made some cheap deal for Davis around week 10, and that around week 10, 11 is kind of when he just quit doing a whole lot and went into the playoffs with a do-nothing Mike Davis, which reminded me very much again why I don't like Mike Davis.
Reminded me of Mike Davis on the 49ers, who
don't remind me.
Who they cut to preserve a roster spot for a man in Joe Williams who never played a snap in the NFL. So
unreal.
Yeah.
The history of baffling 49ers transactions is depressing.
Block off the rest of the episode. Let's talk.
I want to keep viewers. I don't think that's going to keep anybody around, nor convert anybody to our fandom. Although I don't know if I want more people.
Yeah. Quick aside, though, this offseason, people are saying, well, the Jags wouldn't have drafted Travis Etienne in the first round to use him as a gadget back. He's a first round pick. And I said, let me remind you who's running this team. It's Trent Baalke. A man I watched destroy the 49ers from the inside out with baffling draft picks.
We even got an ACL pick or two in this past draft, I believe.
Oh, yeah. I think their second round pick was an ACL guy. It's like, come on, Trent. You cannot help yourself here.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And my other stock rising player, kind of low-hanging fruit again, but hey, it's stock rising. That's kind of what you do, and that's Sam Darnold. But I'm taking great pride in this one because I spent a lot of time this offseason telling everybody that there would be, well, I can't say Sam Darnold resurgence because there was never any surgence to begin with while he was in New York, but we actually get to see Sam Darnold play like a legitimate NFL quarterback because he is playing with legitimate NFL players and being coached by legitimate NFL coaches. Particularly, well, I mean, I love Rule, but Joe Brady was the number one reason I was excited outside of weapons like McCaffrey and more. I really thought this was going to work because I do think Joe Brady is kind of a genius. And so far, that's kind of how it's proving to be. So I'm thrilled to see that Sam is, in fact, taking advantage of this opportunity, thriving. Now he's still got a little bit to go, but he's just looking like he actually belongs on the field now. And the name Cam Darnold, we'll see if that sticks because seeing him run for these touchdowns is just magic. I mean, even in his USC days, not the most mobile guy. He's your stereotypical, big guy, drop back in the pocket, let it rip. But it's just been so much fun. And he's also unlocked DJ Moore, which is the other most amazing thing about this. So just big ups to Sam.
Yeah, shout out to Sam Darnold for hopefully getting DJ Moore more than 4 touchdowns this year, because that would be very nice to see from DJ Moore. And the 4 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 games is a rather large head scratcher from a man that I would describe as statuesque in the pocket. So no, it's great to see what Sam Darnold's been up to. I really enjoyed watching him on the primetime game. I thought that he had completely done a 180 from the Jets Sam Darnold, from the I'm seeing ghosts on Monday Night Football, Sam Darnold. And granted, that was the Texans, but good players beat up on bad teams. It's what they do.
Right.
So,
all right. Well, before we jump to the opposite side here of stock falling, do a quick aside on this end because I failed to go back to the comment section. So we have a couple of questions we need to get to from our viewers, and then we'll jump back into the agenda. But Greg here has a question. Start 3 PPR, Woods, Waddle, Pittman, Damian Williams, Devontae Smith. What do you think, Jeff?
Man, there are... So in a full PPR, I have to double check my who they're playing this week. So give me just 1 second, because I have not fully switched over to this week yet. I'm still in review mode. So give me 1 second here to double check those opponents. I would say though, Damian Williams, I think you want to get into your lineup. So that's one easy one. I'm
going to say Woods personally.
Woods has me worried because Matthew Stafford is just bombing it out, which is not Robert Woods' game. But
that's true.
Pittman against Baltimore, that's not the best. Devonta Smith at Carolina, and Carolina's just adding every cornerback in the world, apparently.
Be nice to see the 49ers do that.
6th-round pick for Stephon Gilmore, like, come on. I would say Waddle against Tampa Bay because that's a terrible pass defense. They're not going to be able to run the ball, so they're a pass funnel team. And so Damian Williams, Pittman, and then I would say, go Robert Woods. I want him to be good, so go Robert Woods for your third one.
And I'm probably, Williams, Woods, Waddle. 3 W's. Let's go.
There you go. Perfect.
And then also Higbee or Schultz. Well, if you've been watching, we kind of answered this question indirectly. I'm in full agreement with Jeff here. We're going to say Schultz, yes?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Absolutely. Okay. Sounds cool. I should have read that one before clicking it.
I would love for Bitcoin to be 1 cent again, because there's a chance that if it's 1 cent tomorrow, it'll be $30,000 again the next day, and then 1 cent the next day. It's such a volatile thing.
It really is. If you can time it right, good for you. But see, it's hard to do that though, because the additional capital gains if you don't hold for a year.
It's this whole
crypto is wild.
Yeah, crypto is wild. That's the best way to put it. But let's talk fantasy football.
Yes. So Nick here has to trade 1.
Okay.
So his team's been decimated by injuries at running back. Welcome to the club. So the trade is either Deontay Johnson for Mike Evans and Damian Williams, or Calvin Ridley for Mike Evans and Damian Williams. Well, I'll let you answer first, Jeff.
I was gonna say that even with what we've seen from Deontay Johnson this year and what we've seen from Calvin Ridley this year, they're kind of meeting in the middle. And I have more faith in Calvin Ridley going back up the ranks than Deontay Johnson passing Calvin Ridley. So I would say you're selling high on Deontay Johnson here with a quarterback that his coach came out and said, he has hip injuries. That's why he's been so bad. Just completely out of nowhere. So I would move Deontay rather than Calvin Ridley.
Absolutely. I'm a big Deontay guy, but in particular, Ben has been concerning, and now we're talking about him being injured. So I would absolutely make that move with Deontay. I would not even consider it for Ridley, to be quite honest. I mean, given it hasn't been the best season so far, not like Matt Ryan lighting the world on fire pre-week 4. So I can see why you would consider that at first, but I definitely would not make that move. I would actually have Deontay, Mike Evans relatively close, so you're just adding on an extra month plus of Damian Williams for making that swap. I say do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just to give real quick, Deontay Johnson we feel is like doing really well, and Calvin Ridley we feel like is doing really poorly. They're back to back in the ranking, so that really gives you an idea of perception is driving reality.
Right. And versus expectation too, though. I think it's a big part of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Thunder here needs to know who wins this trade: CMC and Jacoby Myers, or Saquon and Henderson.
Is
Ooh,
this is if it's in
Thunder, is this full PPR,
Yeah,
half PPR? What are
that's
we
the
looking at
question.
here?
I'm not sure if that makes a difference. I mean,
I probably not, but that's
I've-
actually very close for me.
yeah, it comes down to I don't know what's going on with Christian McCaffrey's injury.
And team makeup will matter a little bit too, whether you
Mhm.
need that extra running back or wide receiver. But in a vacuum, I actually probably lean Saquon and Henderson.
That's what I'm thinking, but I'm looking. It looks like Christian McCaffrey returned to practice today.
There's
If
slight optimism. It sounds like he might make
Yeah.
it back this week. I probably going to be week 6, but
Saquon and Henderson could be 2 top 12 running backs going forward. So, Jacoby Myers he's a nice piece to have. And
Yeah.
I would not,
Excellent.
parting with Christian McCaffrey hurts, but I mean, you need more running backs. The correct answer to how many running backs do I need is always one more than you have. So I will take, all things being equal, the 2 running back sides, Saquon and Hendo.
Yep, with you there. Joey needs 2 wide receivers this week among Woods, Tyler Boyd, Marvin Jones, Cortland Sutton, and Visca Chenault.
So Sutton is in a wait and see mode for me, especially since we don't know what's going on with the concussion protocol with Teddy Bridgewater. It might be Drew Lock this week, which take from that what you will. I like Marvin Jones against Tennessee.
Yep.
We call him wife material because you go have your dalliances with all these other players and you keep coming back home to safe and reliable Marvin Jones at the end of the day. And he had a down game last week, but those things happen. And then, man, I don't know. Tyler Boyd, if T. Higgins isn't playing.
Bingo. That's exactly what I was going to say. No Higgins, Boyd. If Higgins, I say Woods. Person.
But that's the hard part is he has to make the choice on Woods tomorrow. So let me see.
Oh, yeah, that is the Thursday game. See, you're right. We're not fully into week 5 mode yet.
Yeah, that's the hard part. So T. Higgins is expected back this week. So I actually would say count on having Tyler Boyd out, Tyler Boyd being the odd man out, and go with Robert Woods would be probably the best bet.
I would agree fully. And the final question, at least in the backlog, Anthony, shout out to Ant. He is Rastafarian at our good friends one of our good friends over at the Get Right Fantasy Network. Anthony is wonderful, so welcome, sir. And should he offered Sutton for Boyd, not PPR, and he has Burrow and Javonte Williams.
Sutton and Boyd are basically the same tier for me right now, where Boyd is there because his offense is so compacted with playmakers, and Sutton is there because his offense can't throw the ball to him to save his life. I would say season long, I would count on Sutton bouncing back. I mean, we've seen him do it before. Whereas Tyler Boyd, we just said it. If T. Higgins is in the lineup, we don't want to start Tyler Boyd if we can help it. So if your team is in a situation where you can kind of sit on Cortland Sutton for a while and wait for him to get back to form, I would go with Cortland Sutton. If you need a guy who's going to produce for you now, then don't see any problems with going with Tyler Boyd. Non-PPR does change things. Boyd is much better in PPR than in non-PPR, but I wouldn't worry about having Burrow or Javonte Williams. I
don't think that factors in.
Yeah, the effect of stacking in a redraft league is really overstated, and I think it's a byproduct of DFS brain.
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
So non-PPR for me, I'm with you, Sutton. I mean, the guy who's going to be a primary option for his
Yeah.
offense whenever he is playing. Now, whether the offense can help him produce is a whole different matter. Once they start, you're facing much more difficult competition. And we did have one more question come in here. So just got Hollywood Brown and Zach Moss for Melvin Gordon and Sutton. Did I win? I think so.
I think so. I think it's close, but if I had to grade this, I'd give you if C is even, I'd give you a B minus, give you a B. I mean, Hollywood is just rolling like he did at the end of last year. He's had one bad game. He's getting all the targets. He's producing with them. And Zach Moss, we talked about him earlier, and Melvin Gordon has an expiration date. At some point, this is going to become Javonte Williams' backfield. So, yeah, I think it's a win.
No doubt. Oh, and another question. Eventually, we'll get back to this agenda, but our people first. Always our people first.
Exactly. That's why we're here. We're here to help the people.
Bingo. Who cares about what we plan to do? We're here for our friends. So, Dem boys, guy just put Carson on the block. What do you think of offering Connor for him? Starting running backs or Henry and Eckler? Well, actually, we're not going to answer this question immediately, Dem boys, because that's going into the next part of the agenda right now. So if you do want to jump into your stock falling, Mr. Krisko, and kind of answer this question as part of this, that would be tremendous.
So my first stock falling guy is Chris Carson. And I put this in the sheet before we found out that the reason that Alex Collins took over was because of a neck injury to Chris Carson. And I tried to pivot, and then I went back to it and I said, no, this neck injury is a problem for Chris Carson, because Chris Carson was not performing like Chris Carson before the neck injury, and neck injuries are scary. Like, that's what T.Y. Hilton is out with. That's what ended Peyton Manning's career, is neck injuries. And, I have some numbers from before the neck injury. So let's pretend he's healthy tomorrow. Let's pretend he plays tomorrow and the neck injury isn't a problem. He's not the Chris Carson that we've seen. Against stacked boxes, he has a negative yards per carry, where for his career, he's around 3, which is not stupendous, but 3 versus negative, that's not great. We also have this idea of the Seahawks as running the ball a ton. They run the ball 22 and a half times per game, which he ranks 27th among running backs in that category. So we think of the Seahawks as they were in 2019 when they were 3rd, 2018 when they were 2nd, but they don't run the ball so much anymore. That's what happens when you have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and, Gerald Everett when he doesn't have, when he's not on COVID. And Chris Carson is a one-trick pony. He's not a guy who, if he's not running well, he's going to catch the ball a lot. He's got a target and a half per game this year. He had 4 targets per game last year, which is fine, but it's not, this multifaceted thing. He was basically going to be a hammer for an offense that was going to run the ball a lot. And he has not been that. And now he's hurt.
And the neck injury is a problem because it was also termed, at least in reports, as, quote, chronic and long-term. So
yes,
this is not something that is going to be quickly recovered from. This is going to be an issue.
Yeah, and I am not a doctor, but in a former life, I was an injury evaluator for an insurance company. I can tell you, neck, back, those things, they don't get better. They don't, as you age. I mean, just think about aging. Your neck and back don't feel better than they did a year ago. And, he's not old by any means, but he has got a lot of wear on his tires for a running back. So, I mean, he's only 27, but that's a hard 27 that he's rushed. And so I would not make the move. Connor is the goal line back for, just to go back to answering the question, Connor is the goal line back for the number 1 offense in the NFC. Potentially the number 1 offense in all of football. That's a valuable position to be in. Whereas Chris Carson is a compromised version of himself. And that compromised version of himself was kind of just okay to begin with. It was going to be a volume play, and the volume isn't really there. So I would not make that move. No.
Could not agree with you more.
Yeah.
So who else's stock is falling for you?
Oh boy, this is the one that I put it in the show sheet and it hurt me a little bit. It's Brandon Ayuk. There was the doghouse comments which I never bought, which were I've been explaining to everybody. Trent Sherfield was really good in the preseason. Brandon Ayuk wasn't available. Trent Sherfield earned more snaps at Brandon Ayuk's expense. Well, Trent Sherfield gave those snaps right back to Brandon Ayuk because he is once the regular season hit, he was gone. And against Green Bay, he had an okay game. He had a touchdown called back in the end zone that, I mean, ultimately he dropped, but the play didn't count. But his high point this year is 37 yards and a touchdown. He has, other than that, 2 catches for 21 yards. The 49ers are entering their bye after this week. I don't see things getting better for him after this week before the bye. I don't know if you're in an 8-team league or a 10-team league with a 3-man bench and you're in a roster crunch, he might be waiver wire fodder. And it's kind of a thing, not to this extent, but I kind of saw this coming because this offense just doesn't pass the ball enough. And it's built around George Kittle and now Deebo Samuel, and everybody else takes scraps. So he's taking scraps, and that's a huge step down for him.
Yep, couldn't agree more. And if anybody wants to ask if who the quarterback is going to affect him much, my answer would be probably not.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about this quarterback.
No, that could be its whole episode at this point. Yeah. I'm trying to intentionally, mostly to avoid myself from getting, emotional over, whether it's angry, sad, various things. I'm trying to just avoid that topic for now.
Yeah. It's impossible to have a rational discussion among 49ers fans if Jimmy Garoppolo is involved.
I hate 49ers fans for the most part, I swear.
We are
never been so embarrassed to be part of a fan base. I think
we are the worst.
Really.
Oh my gosh. And I'm not going to pan around my office. My office is covered in 49ers stuff. I can tell you, toxic fan base, the worst. I hate us.
Same, man. Only a handful of people. I just can't have a rational football discussion with our own people. It's insane. Well, for me, something else that makes me sad along the wide receiver lines, somebody who I see stock is falling, and part of this actually, it's a little bit related to the quarterback situation, and that is Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson is a grade A stud. I've not shut up about him as well. QB proof, he's a top wide receiver with Blake Bortles, for God's sake. So I figured, okay, Dalton, while we all love to shit on him, has been a good NFL quarterback for a long time. He is an NFL quarterback. Now, whether his best days are behind him, different conversation to be had. But we've seen the guy produce. He belongs on a team. So it's not like he's pure booty. Justin Fields, most of us have some pretty high level of optimism for. So either way, after Bortles and Trubisky and Foles and all that, the view was he's going to play with at least as good of a quarterback as he's ever played with, no matter who's on the field between Dalton and Fields. Well, unfortunately, that has not been the case for Mr. Robinson. He's not getting the targets, the offense, until last week, outside of David Montgomery. I mean, it's just Matt Nagy ruins everything. He's ruining Allen Robinson. Now, Bill Lazor called the plays last week with much more success, but not a whole lot more success for Robinson. Fields seems to really like Mooney, although only one extra target, but it just seems that better throws have gone Mooney's way. So I just don't have a lot of faith in anything Chicago right now outside of, Damian Williams for the next few weeks and David Montgomery when he gets back. I think we'll see Fields grow, but whether that's going to mean good things for Allen Robinson is very much in doubt for me right now. I am extremely concerned about him, and I've got him on benches in most teams where I have a better option. And most teams, I have a better option right now.
Yeah, I mean, Allen Robinson, like you mentioned it, he's shown through his career that he's quarterback proof. Matt Nagy proved that he can ruin anybody, I think is what it is. Matt Nagy is so full of himself that he cannot just say, you know what, I'm screwing this up. He finally is putting in Justin Fields. Hopefully he's been laid low and we can see some better times ahead. But yeah, Allen Robinson, and I watched that game today. I'm not so sure better times are ahead. Justin Fields got to calm down. He's overthrowing everything. So, those sort of intermediate to deep balls that not only Mooney, who made some good catches, but Allen Robinson feast on, those are trouble balls right now for Justin Fields. So fingers crossed. I hope he gets a lot better and quick, because I also have a lot of Allen Robinson.
Oh yeah. Way too much.
Yeah.
Way too much, it appears. Oof.
Yeah.
And another guy whose stock is falling that I don't have quite as much of, but still a little bit, is Myles Gaskin. Now, Myles is somebody who I tried to actually stay away from for the most part preseason, but as we just got closer and closer and they didn't really add anybody except Malcolm Brown, like, oh, well, okay. I mean, there were plenty of opportunities. They didn't. I bought in because he did perform last year. He played well. But one of the things that made him so successful last year was active use in the screen game. That has not been there whatsoever this year, especially since Jacoby Brissett has come in place of Tua Tagovailoa after his injury. And we saw a grand total of 2 carries for 3 yards this past Sunday. So it is just a bad state for Mr. Gaskin right now. The usage isn't there whatsoever. I mean, and the state of the offense in this team is also pretty poor. I really don't know what to expect from him moving forward, and it's really not anything I want to be involved with. It's down bad right there for Miami running backs.
I don't know if you saw, but I made
I saw.
Bestill my heart. Myles Gaskin was my guy this offseason. He was my guy. And I'll tell you, I still have faith in Myles Gaskin once Tua comes back. Because you're right, he hasn't been getting a lot of targets in the screen game, but he was still getting targets. In the first 3 games, he had 5, 5, and 6 targets, and that's where he makes his money. That's where his bread is buttered. He was, I believe, top 3 in yards per reception last year among running backs, and he was on fire with Tua last year. Tua's been gone, and I'm sorry, but Malcolm Brown ain't it. Salvin Ahmed ain't it. Myles Gaskin is the best running back they have there. But don't go buy him now, and here's why. He will be on waiver wires after week 5. They play Tampa next week.
Yeah, he's doing nothing.
So you don't even have to. I was going to go buy low offers on him everywhere. Then I saw Tampa, and I said, you know what? I'll just spend fab on him instead, because that's what's going to happen in a lot of these leagues. So he's been down and out. I still have the faith once Tua comes back, especially if he comes back after the Tampa game, because then they have Jacksonville and Atlanta, which are 2 get-right games for Myles Gaskin, I do believe. Fingers crossed. He's still yeah.
Should have looked a little further down the schedule, but that's still I kind of stopped at Tampa Bay. I was just like, that's just going to be the funeral.
Let's be clear here. My faith is I will get him off of the waiver wire, which tells you exactly how much faith I have in him, which is, I'll throw him back onto my roster.
I'll happily pick him up. He's going to be better than any waiver option you're going to find at the time if that happens. Yeah. I mean, short of Miami signing another back during that time.
Yeah, and I had this thing during the offseason where we were punishing Myles Gaskin for Aaron Jones not going there and Travis Etienne not going there and then Todd Gurley not going there. And we were just like, well, he's going to be bad. We just got stubborn. He's going to be bad because I wanted Aaron Jones to be there. And his usage is so weird because the other running backs are not good. And we saw this happen with him last year too.
Yeah.
I'm just riding it out. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to be stubborn. I'm going to ride him straight to 5th place.
Just like me on the teams, I haven't cut Rojo yet. I just can't do it.
Oh, I cut Rojo in 2 leagues today, and I felt a weight come off of my shoulders because I tried to move him for waivers yesterday, but the waivers didn't go through, and I said, you know what? I'll just get a free agent. I'm just gonna find somebody else and just get this off my back.
I had no choice on a handful of teams. Disclosure, I have him on a lot of teams. I drafted him everywhere I could, so maybe a small part of me still has that, that ego that wants to just have like 2 good games in a row come out and be like, see, I told you, and this is why you don't drop him. Ha! But I don't think it's coming. So yeah, it's bad.
I mean, this is kind of me reaping rewards on my experiment this year. My no money spent for my MLB The Show fans, my no money spent experiment. And I have no financial ties to Ronald Jones except for my normal league dues. And if he's bad, he's gone. I'm not like, oh no, I have 23% exposure to Ronald Jones. So I have to keep the faith. It's like, no, he sucked this year. And Leonard Fournette's been good. You can boot him to the curb.
Still hold on to that ticket for the rushing title. No, not really. I do not have futures bets on Ronald Jones, to be clear. And Anthony here chiming in. Hey, we're not as bad as Raider fans. Anthony is one of our fellow faithful. You're right. Maybe we're not as bad as Raider fans. And
I'm curious what exactly a Raider fan is, because is that LA fans? Is that Oakland fans? Is that Vegas fans?
Well, Raider fans are all over. And
Raider fans, yeah.
They're
often
an aggressive group.
Yeah, I was actually at the preseason game where where a guy got stabbed with the Raiders Niners, and then they at Candlestick before they stopped having Raiders Niners preseason games for like 8 or 9 years. And there was just a fight 6 or 7 rows ahead of me. And I hate to say it, but it was the 49ers fan instigating.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
And not as bad as Seahawks fans for different reasons. We're not, but yeah, we're not.
Seahawks fans are harmless.
They're
weird. That's all it is. They're weird,
but they're not real fans. That's my problem. There is no such thing really as real Seahawks fans. They don't actually exist. Find me. I want to see that stadium full of only people that rooted for them pre-Russell Wilson, because I never met them. I mean,
find me the Sean Alexander and Matt Hasselbeck fans. Yeah, find me those guys.
Because even when that team went to the Super, when Hasselbeck went to the Super, I never saw a Seahawks jersey in my life in person until Russell Wilson came along. So and the 12 thing drives me nuts. There's nothing redeeming about that franchise, so it's including the fan base. I
think they're pretty harmless. I think they're pretty harmless. I mean, they all think they're too clever by half, with the Cable Thanos stuff and the Baby Yoda stuff. They think they're so clever, but they're ultimately harmless. And also, the reason they're called 12s is because that's the year they became fans, was 2012.
That's facts.
Oh, my Seahawks friends hate when I say that, but
so that's why you're holding back a little bit, because you have Seahawks friends. Yeah. See, I am here to crush anybody I know that roots for the Seahawks, even people that I would term friends.
Not everybody was raised right. That's how I feel.
Well, which one of us is that?
The 49ers fans. That's who was raised right.
Well, clearly in terms of fandom, but geez, not in terms of behavior. As we were talking about earlier. My goodness.
Yeah, we don't show up to the stadium, and when we do, we just start fighting people.
Dude, even down here a couple of years ago, went to a Rams game at the Coliseum, and just awful. Honestly, it made me not want to go back to NFL games in person for a long time.
I can tell you, I'm a season ticket holder at Levi's. It's pretty relaxed up in the stands.
Levi's, I'm sure.
Levi's is pretty relaxed, mostly because everybody's too hot to get mad at each other. Everybody's just baking in their own seat, in their own sweating in their own juices.
Gotta love that planning in stadium design, huh?
Oh yeah.
Jeez. All right, so back to actual topics at
Back
hand
to
here,
business.
though. Yes,
Yeah.
back to business. Boardroom focus. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, foul ball.
Yeah, no,
We're in
I was
the-
looking at that too.
Oh. All right. So promotions. Now, I'm going to start with this one here. We're only going to give you one name each. I'm going back to the well, and that is Cordero Patterson. Kind of like I touched on, forget trying to move him. You're not going to get anything worth your while. We're just going to ride this ride until it dies. So if you have Cordero Patterson, you picked him up, even hesitant to put him in your lineup, stop it and put him in there. No, he's probably not going to give you a 30-point game like he did last week, but he's going to give you a good game. Put him in, even across the pond against the Jets. Just do it. Play Cordero Patterson, because this is only going to likely last for a certain amount of time, and we don't know exactly when. Signs are still encouraging, why we're still high on him, but just play him.
Yeah, I misunderstood the assignment, so I'm calling it audible.
So promotion would be somebody you're looking to move up, maybe on your bench, but has earned a spot.
Has earned a spot. So I'm gonna call an audible here because I had Zach Ertz who was getting promoted into what we call the blob. But I will say I'm definitely not stalling. Don't ever ever accuse me of stalling here.
No stalling here. We're like we were transparent with the audience from the beginning. We're gonna be a little bit distracted by this baseball game, and we're now in the middle of the ninth. Damn it.
Yes.
All right.
Emmanuel Sanders, Buffalo Bills. I'm eating a lot of crow on Manny Sanders because I thought he was going to be Saints Manny Sanders last year in Denver. Manny Sanders, Niners Manny Sanders, like an 8.5 A-dot guy, not a guy who gets up and goes downfield anymore, but they turned back the clock with him and Josh Allen.
Yeah.
He is, as we stand right now, Emmanuel Sanders is sitting as wide receiver 25 in PPR, which is incredible. He has 5 catches in each of the last 2 games. He has at least 6 targets in all 4 games this year. And, he has replaced John Brown. I thought that Gabe Davis was going to replace John Brown and Emmanuel Sanders was going to be like a super sub because he can do a little Cole Beasley, a little Stephon Diggs, a little Gabe Davis. Yeah. That's kind of what I thought he was going to do, but that's not what he's done this year. He's been the deep threat. His ADOT is 16.1. He is 12th in the league in air yards. They're airing it out to him, and he's coming down with the balls because he's a good wide receiver. So there's a lot of people who draft him like wide receiver 40, wide receiver 50, and bench guy. If you're starting 3 wide receivers or 2 wide receivers in a flex, he can stay in your lineup. And there's not going to be a problem there, especially because in oh no, I accidentally closed his window. But he has some good matchups coming up, and the team itself is the most prolific team in the NFL, so he could be matchup proof. So Emmanuel Sanders, promote him. If in a 3 wide receiver league, he should be your 3rd wide receiver. He shouldn't leave that spot.
That's a good call. I like that.
It's definitely not one I made up on the spot.
No, Emmanuel has definitely earned a promotion. That's for sure. Now, we also have guys that, with promotions come demotions. And a guy you might consider sending to your bench for the aforementioned Mr. Sanders is a guy I'm going back to the well again on this episode. Double dipping here. My man, Allen Robinson. It breaks my heart to say it. I just can't put him in a lineup right now. He is riding bench. We already kind of went through the reason, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Just know that it cuts at the core of my very being, even giving this advice. But that's just where I'm at. Pour one out for A-Rob for now.
Yeah, that's rough. The guy that I'm demoting, I mentioned him earlier as a guy you could trade for and hold on to, but for right now, I cannot start Courtland Sutton. He had a big game against Jacksonville, but other than that, he's been a dud 1 for 14, 5 for 37, 3 for 47. And you've got the quarterback change there potentially. And it seems like they're leaning more on the run game. And, Pittsburgh's coming up next week. I still believe in that Pittsburgh defense. It's not something that I want to kind of lean into, even though they're sixth in points allowed, but they have had injuries. I don't know. The Pittsburgh defense still scares me, and it's too early in the season for me to kind of get away from that. Then after that, he gets the Raiders, who are 28th against wide receivers, and after that, he gets the Browns, who are 25th. Bad stretch of games coming up. You can start up against Pittsburgh, but after that, it's getting a little hinky for Cortland Sutton. So I'm benching him till further notice, even though I still believe in the guy. I still think he's a good football player, but he's coming off an injury, and he's still got to show me something.
Yep. And if Judy stays on track with his return, that's gonna play a bit of a factor too. So keep an eye on that. And we've had another question come in here, all in one show. Hey guys, need a wide receiver. Should I trade Mahomes for Herbert and Hopkins? Yeah. In my opinion, yesterday.
Yeah, that's a very good trade for you. Even though Herbert's been like not what we wanted from him this year, he still looked really good. Statistically, he's not quite there yet, but he will be. And you're getting Nuke Hopkins. That's the double buy low. That's a great trade for you, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, where is Herbert?
Yeah, so Herbert's 15th right now,
okay.
But he started off slow. But he has 7 touchdowns in his last 2 games. So
yeah, bingo.
It's picking up.
Yeah, so I would make that trade in a heartbeat. Ride that, pick yourself up a very good wide receiver who has elite upside. We'll see if spreading the love is what continues to happen in Arizona, which to a degree I think it will, like you were talking about earlier, Jeff. It's not going to be the same volume funnel to Hopkins as before, but I also think as he gets healthier, it's also going to increase over what we've seen recently, and you're still going to regularly see 100-yard and a touchdown games out of Mr. Hopkins.
Yeah,
with, 6 to 10 catches. Whatever.
The 180-yard spike weeks might be gone, but sure. DeAndre Hopkins can get 100 yards on 6 targets. It's not a problem. The problem has been his ribs. That's been the problem. Yeah, I would love to do that trade.
Yeah, can someone who I don't really have a lot of Herbert though, unfortunately, so nobody can make me. Or actually, I don't have much of Mahomes or Herbert, so nobody can really make that trade to me.
Yeah, I unfortunately have a lot of Ryan Tannehill, which has really hurt me this year. So, boy.
Yeah, you're on the money all in one. People giving up on Hopkins already is baffling.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is people are too ready to jump off that train.
Patience. You're doing the right thing. So yeah, take advantage of that very generous offer from your league mate.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now we've gone through promotions, demotions. Got to focus on one more area of personnel here. Got to do a little bit of recruiting. Hit that waiver wire. Give me a name or two of who you were targeting this week. Now, it's probably a little late for this advice. Most waivers have run, but if any of these people might have been missed in waivers last night, make sure you go check or see if anybody dropped some of these people to make room for somebody else.
Yeah. So what I did was every week I write kind of like the leftovers. We haven't come up with a snappy name for it, but it's guys who are still available in 50% or more of leagues after waivers have run. And these are 2 guys who are kind of the leftovers. I think first one, Evan Ingram, he has not been good this year. Like, by no stretch of the imagination has he been a good player. But like we talked about at the top of the episode, 2 things. 1, I love bad tight ends. And Evan Ingram's been a bad tight end this year. And 2, I love tight end targets. He's got 6 in each of his first 2 games. So that's sort of the ultimate, like, buy low, stash on your bench, see where it goes sort of tight end. It's a guy who's getting consistent targets. And he's did this without Slayton and Shepard this week, but with Slayton and Shepard last week. He did it when they scored 27 points this week and they scored 14 the week before. So he's a part of this game plan no matter what happens. At the same time, he's not the guy that I really want. He's just the name that was rostered in Boar leagues, so he went higher. The guy you want to go out and get, or he's rostered in fewer leagues, but the guy you want to go out and get is rostered in 30% of leagues, and it's Hunter Renfrow. Good Lord. I don't know what this man has to do to get more respect. I mean, touchdowns in 2 straight, 5 catches in every game this year. Yeah, Rogaine. Hit the weight room, bench press the bar. I mean, I don't know. He can't bench press the bar, but he can catch footballs. He's a part of this offense. He's a key cog in this offense. The Raiders offense is kind of built around dump it off, bomb it out. And Darren Waller's moved from a dump it off guy to a bomb it out guy, and Hunter Renfrow's taken over the dump it off thing. So, I mean, he's incredible. Right now he's on pace for over a 16 game season, 88 catches, 996 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's just scoring fantasy points. He should be on every PPR roster, and he's free in 2/3 of leagues, basically. So give the man some respect. Hunter Renfrow will give you a big signing bonus. We're bringing you on the team, buddy.
With you on that one in particular. So, should have prepared the same way with you, some kind of the scraps and leftovers, but I still can't help but mention him that if he didn't get picked up in the last week or two, Dawson Knox at the tight end position, just as Jeff has alluded to several times, this is an offense leading the NFL. They're just running roughshod over opponents, and Dawson Knox has become a big part of that for Josh Allen. Scoring touchdowns, consistently getting targets, and just showing overall improved play and increased efficiency with Allen. We saw us start to begin last year. It was a good dynasty stash last year, thankfully paying off this year, as in most teams where I did that. I was rough at the position to begin with, so this has been a revelation for me. But your window may have passed as his rostership is up to about 70%. But back in the world of percentages that Jeff was discussing, Kenneth Gainwell. He's rostered about 40% of leagues right now. The number should be much, much higher. For some reason, Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles hate Miles Sanders. At least that's how it feels for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not the biggest Miles Sanders fan either, but I do think, he has a bit of value. He's a good player and should at least be getting used to some degree. That's not really happening, at least in terms of touches. Seeing him on the field a lot if you go and check snap counts and percentages, but he is not really touching the ball, whereas Gainwell, on the other hand, is. In particular, in PPR leagues is where you need to have him. He's just racking up receptions. And I closed the page because, again, this stupid baseball game has me distracted. So
it's a good game.
Forgive me for the lack of details. This is a great game. I hope you're listening to our audio instead of TBS's as you watch. Yeah. But so, anyways, Kenny Gainwell, you probably missed out on Damian Williams in your waivers, or even if you did, still go get Gainwell. This is... Again, back to what Jeff said earlier. How many running backs do you need? One more than you have. So go get Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, I love. So when I got the show sheet, I was like, I was looking. Waiver wire targets. Okay, Dawson. Oh nope, that's already on there. I was like, okay, that's already on there too. These are both great options. This week, running back sleepers were for 1 week were kind of a drag. So I actually wrote about like futures guys, and I wrote about Kenny Gainwell. He's their Nyheim Hines, whatever that means to you. Sirianni is from the Colts. He was on the Colts last year.
Perfect call.
He is going to use Kenny Gainwell like Nyheim Hines. And I don't know why he hates Miles Sanders. Maybe he read, was it Toronto FFB calling him Slime Sanders? Maybe he read that and he hasn't got it out of his head. But Gainwell is their 2-minute back. He's their passing downs back, and he's getting it on the goal line. And like you said, he's out there in 60% of leagues. See if you're in one of those 60%, because this could be a free piece that could do a lot of damage for you down the stretch.
Yes, guaranteed there's somebody out there you're hanging on to that you don't still need to be.
Yeah.
In fact, I was talking about my heartbreaking Rojo drops, and a couple of them were for this man here, Gainwell. Go get Gainwell.
I do it in a second.
Also,
if you want a comp for how you should feel about Dawson Knox, think about whichever one of these guys you liked more last year, Logan Thomas or Robert Tonyan, because he's going to be a mix of those two guys. But people are catching on faster than they did last year.
I think a mix is perfect because Tanya
Yeah.
didn't have a ton of targets. I think he's going to get more targets over the course of the year.
But he's going to have more
like
touchdowns.
Thomas. He's going to have more
Logan
touchdowns than Thomas.
Yeah,
Bingo.
yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Your comp game is on point. I'll give you that.
I tried.
And so before bouncing into our final topics here,
Sure.
get back to a couple questions. So back to the Mahomes for Herbert and Hopkins trade, delved into people giving up on Hopkins already, and Dustin is bringing up and Tannehill for him too. And I'm actually kind of with Dustin. I'm not really all the way out on Tannehill yet. I think this week against Jacksonville is going to bring some people back.
Yeah, so I was gonna say he gets the Jags this week, and he's been okay the last couple games. You know, this is gonna be a good week for everybody who believed in Ryan Tannehill. You know, we won't talk about Buffalo where he's gonna get sacked 6 times, but for this week, it'll be good.
Yes, this will be our brief victory lap.
Yes,
until
that's right.
We have another strong matchup. But the beauty is he plays in the AFC South, so he will have more strong matchups.
Play the Jags twice.
Houston.
Yeah, in Houston.
Do y'all believe the Denver's D could be reliable all season long, or should I trade him now? I mean, over my time playing fantasy football, I have never really seen many trades with defenses go down anyways, to be honest. I would just ride them. I don't know if they'll be as dominant. They had a particularly favorable early schedule playing 3 relegation level teams almost. So but I do think they are very good, but their degree of difficulty is about to go up.
If somebody will trade you for Denver's defense, do it.
Yeah, sure.
I just don't know if somebody will do that. For no other reason than, as you mentioned, their first 3 weeks were the 3 worst teams in the NFL. And they still have games against the Chiefs, who are first in points scored, the Raiders, who are third in points scored in the AFC, and the Chargers, who are 6th in points scored in the AFC.
That's
so
exactly it.
Their big tests are still ahead. So if somebody will trade you for Denver, do it, because I would much rather stream defense than hang on to one anyways. And trading any DST for a player is a win. It's a win, a win, a win.
So I guess the answer is if you can trade them, do it. Yeah. Dustin agrees with us on Sanders. Yes, the game is tied.
It's still tied.
It is. This is.
There have been lots of heart attack moments, but no.
No.
Yeah.
I just kind of hope they do go into extras and can actually enjoy this without having to, put our focus back on the game, not just on camera. And so fantasy catch up here. Trade A-Rob, Robert Woods for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, probably.
That's so those are 3 buy low guys, or sell low if you're trading away A-Rob and Robert Woods. But if you imagine they're all going to bounce back, I would do it. Especially because I wouldn't do it. We had a similar question with running back earlier, but running back, you're so desperate for it. And it was moving, I think it was CMC and Jacoby for Saquon and Hendo.
Right.
I would do that because they're running backs. Wide receivers are so fungible. There are so many of them that I want to consolidate my wide receivers and diversify my running backs, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I would do it.
I would do it too. Mm-hmm. And also just, in my opinion, well, maybe not the best real life player, but probably the best fantasy player group, Ridley, and then best situation to bounce back to at least public perception expectations. Ridley, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
And Hazard League offered Chubb and Deontay Johnson for CMC. That's an easy pass for me, honestly. I would keep CMC without even thinking about it.
Yeah, that's somebody hoping you panic.
Yeah, don't do it. Hang tight.
Fire emoji. I agree.
Trade Kirk Cousins, Devontae Adams, and DeAndre Swift for CMC and DK Metcalf.
I don't know. The Kirk Cousins part is negligible. He's the definition of replacement level quarterback in a one quarterback league. But Adams and Swift for CMC and Metcalf.
I have to stay on brand, and I have to say Adams and Swift. Just keep them. Just keep them.
Just keep him.
I bringing in. I'm particularly pro Swift and not nearly as high on DK as most.
Okay.
So that's probably where my hesitation is. But even as much as I love Swift, I mean, CMC is the best player in this whole trade by far, but also still coming back from an injury. This is hard.
I would probably say I'm not going to put CMC on my roster because of the injury. If all things are equal, which, like I said, Kirk Cousins that's not really a part of this. Adams and Swift for CMC and Metcalf, it's kind of equal. So I'm going to not trade for the injured guy. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, that's
I don't want to inherit a running back injury.
Bingo. Well, we'll go back. I think we answered both, but just to recap. So in this case, trade Allen Robinson and Robert Woods for Ridley. Yes. And in your other league, you got offered Chubb and Johnson for CMC. No, hang on to CMC in this case. Don't actively bring on the running back injury. But if you already have him, do not move him for Johnson and Chubb. I think that's where we're both.
Yeah.
And be torn. Brian Barnes. Hey, what's up, guys? New here. Welcome, Brian. Really happy to have you. Thank you for joining. And thoughts on Kittle? Well, hopefully we can. Bummer.
Yeah.
All right. So.
All right, game's over. Let me. So I don't want to see him celebrate.
Our thoughts on Kittle might be semi-biased, as we are both 49er fans, and he also happens to be my favorite real-life player. So there's definitely some bias that comes here, but I think he is going to come back, and maybe he won't finish technically as a tight end 3, especially given his week so far, but I still think he's going to, on a week-to-week basis be in that, top 3 discussion over and over. Like you were talking about Ayuk earlier, hard to be encouraged about him moving forward, and Debo can only do so much. Or maybe not. Who knows? I mean, he is doing everything right now.
If teams continue to not guard him when he's wide open, then
I think we're going to see a lot more of George moving forward.
Yeah, Kittle, he started off slow, 20 targets in the last 2 games. That right there tells me he's going to get involved in the offense. It was a weird game for Kittle because he was injured. He came in with the calf injury, I believe it was. He was 4 for 6 for 40 yards. Then Jimmy Garoppolo threw him a hospital ball, just a gnarly ball. That was very similar to the one that caused his injury last year against Arizona in week 1.
It was.
And oh man, they had the high def camera on his face, and you could see the fear as he was coming down. Then he was hobbled for the rest of the game. So he was part of the game plan. When Trey Lance was in, he was his release valve. So if it's Trey Lance this week, I think he'll continue to get targets. I'm not too worried about that. It's just he was hobbled. Trey Lance was way too amped up and was overthrowing Kittle. So he's not leaving your lineup. If somebody will pay you George Kittle draft day prices for him, I have no problem trading him like he's a top 3 tight end. But I
would agree with.
Yeah, I'm not panicked to the point that I'm trying to find a replacement or I'm moving him out of my lineup because 20 targets. If I could tell you, hey, you're going to have a tight end on your roster who's going to get 20 targets over a 2-day span, you will take it because that's what tight end is. Draft day price does not matter anymore. You're just looking at the players as they are on your roster. So
couldn't put it better.
There you go.
All in one show. Been having a mini panic on TJ Hawkinson. Do y'all think he'll come back to his week 1 and 2 form? I think I'll let Jeff answer first and then give you my answer.
I think his week 1 and 2 form was, it was him being George Kittle, which is in his range of outcomes, but I don't think it's week 1 and 2. I don't think it's the last couple weeks. I think he settles in somewhere nicely. 70 yards a game, 5 catches, 70 yards a game, sometimes a touchdown. Not this massive hammer every week, but encouraging 8 targets last week. I'm always just chasing targets with tight ends. 8 targets last week. That's encouraging. I wouldn't panic. Minnesota's not a great matchup. Cincy, I don't know if they've even been tested by a tight end yet this year. So I would just keep the faith with TJ Hawkinson, more so than like Kyle Pitts. It's hard because there's kind of a firewall there where it doesn't I can't drop him down further than he is. You kind of have to hold.
Yeah, right there with you. I think the truth's going to be somewhere right there in the middle. Yeah, he's not going to be 100-plus guy and scoring that regularly, but definitely I think, 60 to 80 yards and touchdowns every other week or so is right where you're going to see him. And that'll probably keep him as a top 6 tight end or so. So still very valuable. I would not panic about him. Just keep expectations, like you would most tight ends that aren't named Travis Kelce or Darren Waller.
Yeah, it's hard to watch TJ Hawkinson struggle because you are kicking yourself because you didn't sell high. So at this point you can't retroactively sell high, so you kind of got to hang on to him. And if he has another big game and you're worried, then you can sell him. If after this week he has a big game.
For Dak, Ridley, Chase, and Edmonds for Murray and Adams. I would take those 4 over those 2.
That is a haul.
Yes,
for those 2. I would do that in a second. That is a huge trade.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty big on all 6 players in this deal together. I mean, there's nobody really here that I'm down on at all. Kyler is having a hell of a year. I mean, I don't think Dak's going to finish all that far behind him. Adams and Ridley versus, I mean, not a huge difference, most likely, when all is said and done.
Yeah. But that's a lot of pieces that can help you out without taking a lot of, massive downgrades.
Yeah, I'd be all over this.
Yeah.
Particularly the bigger the league you're in, for sure. I mean, if this is some, say, 8-team league, just by the off chance, maybe not, because you need those high-end pieces more, but even in a 10-team league, I'd probably do that.
Yeah, this is filling out your team to get into the bye weeks that are coming up.
Yep. Hey, don't be sorry. That's part of what we're here for, Fantasy Catch-Up. We're glad you're here. Glad you're asking. Hope to keep seeing you. What about CMC for Diggs and Clyde? Probably another case. I'd probably hang on to Christian.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I would hang on to CMC. The vultures are circling because of the CMC injury. They're hoping that you're afraid that he's going to be out for a long time like he was last year, but all signs are pointing to him coming back sooner rather than later. So, tell the vultures to buzz off.
Yeah, 100% with you. So Hunter Renfrow, this is full PPR. Cole Beasley, Jalen Waddle. Needs help. So I assume 1 for your flex. Oh, yeah, flex right there. So,
I mean, I would go
Renfrow, yeah.
Yeah. The Bears can't stop a wide receiver to save their life. I went on a whole tirade about how the man needs to be respected. So go with the great man, Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, Big Daddy H. Get him in. Should I start Patterson over CEH?
Whew.
That.
Let me see who they're playing.
Is a yeah.
See Cordero Patterson against the Jets or CEH against Buffalo. Yeah, I'd read the Lightning. Yeah, why not? Shoot.
My wife rosters both in our couples league, so may need to discuss that with her as well.
Well, if you're playing against her, then
I'm not playing against her.
Okay, then she should start.
And she started 0-3, bad luck week 1. She had, put it to you this way, in week 1. She had Tyreek Hill. She had Amari Cooper. She lost by 0.02.
Oh,
it was, and she hasn't played fantasy in about 5 years. So her welcome back was, yeah, let's spend the first part of the day watching two receivers score 80 points and then watch it evaporate to lose by the smallest amount possible.
Yeah, I had in my home league CD and Gronk, and I was strutting around Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday came, and then Monday hit, and then I stopped strutting because I ended up losing. So
The way it goes, man. That is a lot. Daniel Jones or Ryan Tannehill? Well, this week I'm riding Tanny. Just
I'm
against
riding
Jacksonville.
I'm riding Tanny. Daniel Jones has encouraged me this season. He has 2 turnovers. One of them was a Hail Mary at the end of the first half. So you can wipe that interception off the board. I'm still going to ride Tannehill. I just have to go find Joe Pisapia and tell him that because he was on our podcast and we were doing guys we're excited about. And I was like, Daniel Jones. And he was basically did everything to do be like, what are you, an idiot? He said everything short of that. So while I'm encouraged by Daniel Jones, I'm still riding Tanny for now.
For sure. I'm right there with you. Would you expect Barkley, Antonio Gibson, and Deontay for Kamara, Justin Jefferson, and T. Higgins? This, for me, would be very dependent on your teams.
I think it would be dependent on teams and format. So Barkley is going to be a PPR monster. Antonio Gibson is actually struggling in PPR, and Deontay Johnson is a PPR monster. So if it's standard, I would probably hang on to Kamara, Jefferson, and Higgins. If it's PPR, I might make the move, but it really depends on what you need. You guys get interesting trades.
Yeah, where's all this in our lives?
Yeah, I get like, hey, do you want to trade Ronald Jones for Kenyon Drake? He's like, no, thank you. You throw out your own trash.
And yeah, I was negotiating a trade around Edmonds and some of these tight ends earlier today. I mean, that's the world we're in. We need better leagues, man. We need better league mates.
This is wild. I need to just show my league mates this and be like, where are these trades? Although we did have CPAT for CEH straight up, which caused an uproar because half the league said it's fine and half the league thought it was highway robbery. So
redraft,
keeper. So
keeper, okay.
Yeah, the CPAT keeper cost is extremely low. So if he keeps it up, but I was like, yeah, it's fine. I'm not going to get mad. I wouldn't do it, but wasn't mad about it.
All right, so we got some answers from Brian here, by the way. So full PPR, back to that Barkley, Gibson, and Deontay for Kamara, Jefferson, league. And an 8-man league, yes.
So I think in an 8-man league, I want the Barkley, Gibson, Deontay side.
I think so too, and especially in full PPR.
Yeah, because
Kamara not getting his targets.
In an 8-man league, T. Higgins moves to like the top of your bench. So you want difference makers, and I would say that's 3 difference makers for 2 different difference makers and a guy who kind of sits at the top of your bench. So I would want the Barkley, Gibson, Deontay side of that trade.
Yep. If there's any chance for CMC to play this week, I mean, he hasn't been ruled out, so maybe, but I think we're going to have to wait one more.
I mean, there's no guarantee we'll all be alive on Sunday, so...
All right, Kyle. Or Justin Fields.
Yeah, no, there's a chance. But it's luckily I believe it's a 10 a.m. Pacific game, so you'll know in the morning if he's going to play or not. Because he's back at practice, so we'll see.
I bet it's not a true game time decision anyways. I bet we know by Saturday.
It's going to be one of those scheduled tweets that Adam Schefter pumps out at 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. Eastern. Every Saturday, he just loads up all the scheduled tweets. It's going to be one of those.
Love being on the West Coast for that reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Knox or Schultz?
Let me double check those matchups. Oh, man. Schultz. I would say Schultz. They got the Giants this week. They got the Giants, who I think lost Blake Martinez, 4th in tight end fantasy points, and they give up some fantasy points to some illustrious guys like Ricky Seals Jones, Alberto. Yeah, I would go Schultz. I think he's
Yeah.
scoring.
Bingo. And kind of to your point, the 4 for 40, while in 3 of 4, that's essentially what Knox has done too. It's also kind of what we're looking at with Schultz. It just feels to me, at this point, there's just a little more chemistry trust from Dak to Schultz at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly better matchup. And also, we've seen touchdowns 3 weeks in a row from Knox, and I just feel like maybe pumpkin time in this particular one, especially in a big primetime game. I can see Allen trying to focus on some other bigger weapons. Like I think maybe we're looking at a big Diggs game.
That's what I was
Come
thinking.
Sunday,
We're gonna get
so-
Diggs involved.
That's where I'm definitely leading Schultz.
Yeah, and especially one of the things I like to look at, especially early in the season, is like, okay, so Kansas City gives up the 7th most tight end fantasy points, but they've done it against like Mark Andrews, Jared Cook, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz. So their level of competition has been higher. So they're probably
Very
a
true.
stronger tight end defense than the Giants, who are 4th, giving up points to Lee Smith and Albert Okwuegbunam, and so I would lean Schultz.
Yep. Actually, make an even better case. You think Lance is the guy rest of season?
No.
Long and short answer, no. I
Oh.
pray to God, no.
No, he's not. He's fun. He's
Yeah.
not ready. He's
No.
not ready. No.
Not remotely.
Yeah, I mean, just watch go back and watch his first 5 or 6 pass attempts, and you will see exactly why he's not ready.
I mean, I think the guy's going to be a star. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, but not right now.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget Peyton Manning was a bum in his first year, so I'm not writing anybody off for not being a superstar right off the bat.
It's not even being a bum, really. It's just he's so raw.
Yeah,
And
it's
lacks
extremely raw.
experience. It'll come when he learns how to put a little more touch on the ball as opposed to firing these absolute cannons into every single pass attempt.
Those cannons gave me Colin Kaepernick PTSD watching him. Just, hey, there's a running back in the flat. Let me throw the ball through his chest, which was
that's
the
where
Cap
he's
special.
trying. So
Yeah.
so he'll get there, but no, I don't think Lance is the guy rest of season. Neither does Jeff, and
No.
we'll
Neither
see.
does Kyle Shanahan.
No, clearly. All I can say is I do hope that if this is another legitimate lower leg injury for Garoppolo, that he does not get rushed back and just hobble along only to just be hurt and suck most of the year and ultimately miss most of the year anyways, leading to it actually being Lance most of the rest of the season. If he has to take a week or two off, let it happen. Let Lance, get some of these growing pains out, especially in particular this week, a game we might have a hard time winning either way against Arizona. So just let him
Let
rest,
it ride.
get him back. Old Herbs or Matt Stafford this week?
So Stafford's at Seattle tomorrow night. Herbs is
Which I like a lot.
Cleveland. I'm going to go Stafford this week.
Same.
Yeah, I'm going to go Stafford.
All right, so pick 2. J-Rob, James Robinson, DeAndre Swift, Patterson, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, or Chuba Hubbard.
Is this a 2-man league? What is this? This is incredible.
I mean, it's Barkley and Swift for me by a pretty significant margin.
Yeah.
So,
But this is a great problem to have. I'm going to be honest with
tremendous.
you. Yeah, Barkley and Swift shouldn't leave your lineup. But yeah.
Skipped your on 3.
We did Herbert or Stafford. We said Stafford. Yeah, we said Stafford. Because it was pretty clear we didn't really go into it a lot. Seattle defense is not good.
Right.
And the Rams offense is very good. So we'll go with Stafford.
Definitely will.
Shocking.
So here we go. Need to pick up a wide receiver for his week 6 bye. One of Shepard, Chanel, Ruggs, and drop either Mitchell or Javante. Well, do not drop Javante.
Don't drop Javante yet. Do not do that.
It's Shepard.
Yeah.
Even coming back from his injury, I'm very encouraged by the way Daniel Jones has been looking his way the first few weeks.
Yeah,
'Cause
I just don't know if he's going to be back yet. That's what I'm double checking. He's on side work today. Let me see.
oh yeah, if he needs him for week 6, he might not be back for week 6. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
seem to be. Yeah, it looks like they're not bullish on him being back this week, so it's a possibility for week 6. If he's leaning for week 6 now, I would have to say Chenault with no DJ Chark. But if you can make the decision later on, I would probably lean Shepard if we know that he's
Right.
playing. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Is Sanders a safe play at flex? Have Connor, Carson, Ayuk, and P. Ryan. I'm just gonna let you do the honors here. You
Yes, he is. I even devoted a whole segment to him about how he should be in your starting lineup because he is what we call hashtag good at football, and he is performing very well this year. And Carson was also a guy I said he's in trouble. And he's probably not playing this week, if we're being honest.
yeah.
DNP today, game time decision tomorrow. He's probably not going to play this week.
I said that's his bench. All right. So yeah,
That's a
you're in good
bench.
shape.
That's a good problem to have. You're the only person who doesn't need one more running back.
Yeah, I think you're gonna be
you're
gonna
good.
do well. All right, so here we go. Pittman Jr., Brandon Cooks, or Marvin Jones Jr.
Oh man.
It would have been Cooks easily, but oh my goodness, in terms of the QB proof thing that we've been talking about with Allen Robinson,
yeah.
maybe Cooks just met his match.
I love Brandon Cooks, but if there's one thing we know about Bill Belichick, he starts his game planning with being like, okay, what is the thing you do best? I'm going to take that away. It's get the ball to Brandon Cooks, and it's going to be a rough week this week for Brandon Cooks. So I'm actually not super thrilled about starting Brandon Cooks this week. So if it's PPR, I would probably go Pittman. In standard, I would probably or half PPR, I would probably go Marvin Jones. Oh no, wait, actually, sorry, I was looking at the wrong matchup for Pittman. I would go Marvin Jones here. Yeah, sorry, I had the thing. I'm looking at our weekly rankings for the site, and it has Devontae Parker next to Pittman. I thought Pittman was playing Tampa Bay, so I had it.
Yeah,
I had it wonky. No, I would go. Yeah,
Jones for sure.
Go Marvin Jones. Yeah.
Would you trade Waller and Lockett for Kittle and AJ Brown?
That's a tough one.
It is tough.
I would say I would want to hang on to. It depends. If you're 4-0, I make this trade because you can wait for Kittle and AJ Brown to sort themselves out. If you're 2-2 or 1-3 or 0-4, you got to hang on to Waller because you can't wait for AJ Brown to get back into form after his injury.
I would say even if you have a good record, I still. And I love AJ Brown. He's kind of up there with Swift.
Oh.
He's one of those guys I'm obsessed with.
Yeah, I love AJ Brown.
I think you have to hang on to the Waller and Lockett side here. I just think having that, and even though we believe Kittle will bounce back here, I would. You just got to keep Waller. He's still the option on the Raiders passing attack. The number one option by a long shot, and so. Well, not by a long shot as much after, the last couple of weeks, but Lockett's still going to have his big boom games. We already got a couple of them, unfortunately, early on. Sucks to, lose those from the tank, but he's still a guy that's going to finish his, borderline wide receiver 1 or high, top half of the wide receiver 2 range. So, and AJ Brown is going to come back and be really strong, but I'd rather keep that extra edge at tight end. You can make up those points at wide receiver just a little easier if need be.
No, that's a fair
That's
point.
really why. It's just the positional. I mean, as pure 2 players, like if we were in a draft and I was going through, I would probably draft Kittle and Brown. But with where we're at right now, I think it has to be Walter and Lockett.
No, that's a very fair point.
Well, this is thank you, Fantasy Catch Up. Just subbed. You guys are awesome. Thanks for paying attention and acknowledging me. You don't need to donate at this moment. Impossible. Money's tight for rents. Hey, things are tight for a lot of people. So do not worry about it. Just please continue to view. Your support is what we care about. There's no paywall here for a reason. We're not here to ask you for money. We just want some of your time, attention, love, and friendship. That's what.
There you go.
Half PPR, Pittman or Cordero. I'm going Cordero.
Yeah, I would go Cordell. I would ride that wave, especially with Pittman going up against Baltimore.
Yep. You think Gordon will be fantasy relevant? I mean, he has. Or are you talking Josh Gordon?
Yeah, Josh.
I just
Gordon,
realized I was just thinking Melgo. I'm like, I mean, he has been. No.
No, I mean, there's so much stacked against him. He's entering a wide receiver room that's basically a bunch of Josh Gordons, a bunch of fast, athletic guys who haven't done much in the past few years. I mean, I'd like to remind people, Josh Gordon's big year was 2013. Some of the top songs that year were Thrift Shop by Macklemore. So if you want to go out and buy Macklemore's new album, which I don't know if it exists, sight unseen, because you love Thrift Shop, then maybe go out and get Josh Gordon. Otherwise, please don't do that. I don't think he's fantasy relevant. The number 2 wide receiver there, if you picked the correct one every week last year, like if you picked correctly between Pringle, Hardman, Robinson, and the fourth guy whose name escapes me, you would have had wide receiver 40. So that's your upside there. Your upside is wide receiver 40 if you pick the right weeks. So I don't think Josh Gordon's going to be fantasy relevant. No,
it's really a 2-man show.
Yeah,
So
and that's why we love that offense.
Yes,
because it's so concentrated. That's why we love the Chiefs,
and why we will continue to love that offense.
Yeah.
Is Darrell Henderson a solid RB2? He has impressed me with his production while having injury problems, but also that's what worries me.
He's a borderline running back 1, so yes, I would say solid running back 2. So
I agree.
He's
Fringe
doing great.
RB1 for sure.
Yeah.
So solid RB2 production, I think you can absolutely count on as long as he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are concerned about that, check to see the state of Sony Michel. I mean, He is still Sony Michel, but he probably will have some value if Henderson re-injures himself to any notable degree. You probably can pick up Michel off waivers or very cheaply from your league mate. So I would just look to do that. But I think you can feel pretty good about old Hendo from this point.
Yeah, and there's no timeshare there. He had 90% of snaps when he came back from the injury, so no worries there.
Cooper Kupp, trade for Mike Williams and James Robinson.
I'm hanging on to Kupp.
Yeah, I'm with you.
He could have 17 touchdowns this year, 18 touchdowns this year. He and Stafford are out of control together.
I'd be very surprised if Cooper Kupp, if healthy, does not finish the season as a top 8 receiver, given some down games, possibly higher.
Mm-hmm.
And Williams, I don't think this is a mirage or anything. He'll also continue to be great. He won't be wide receiver 2 great as the first 3 weeks of the season. And Robinson, I'm just scared of Urban Meyer and that whole situation period, as good as Robinson has been.
Yeah, I'm not leaning into whatever it is Urban Meyer is doing over there. I don't know what it is, but I'm not trying to get additional pieces of it.
Nope. None whatsoever. Brian is 3-1. He has Josh Allen, Ridley, Justin Jefferson, Alvin Kamara, Damian Harris, Waller, and Lockett. Damn, nice draft.
Is this just a brag post? What's going on here?
With Montgomery and Michael Thomas on R. Should he keep his team or try to trade for a running back? Well,
Jefferson,
Kamara, Harris, Monty.
I don't trust Damian Harris. there's some rumblings with, his routes run last week that he could take over more of the targets from James White. Like Bolden's a special teams guy. He's getting the targets right now. But I mean, Damian Harris is a hammer. And if you're in a PPR league, I mean, he touches the ball like 26 times to get 12 fantasy points.
Right.
I mean, that was the Alvin Kamara line, but it's like that. I would want to see what I can do with, I mean, if Tyler Lockett has a big game tomorrow, that would be 3 and 5 weeks. You could probably get a decent running back too for him.
That's definitely the route I would look to go. Wait for the next pop from Lockett and see if you can move him for a decent additional running back.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh no, sorry. I was interrupting you. Go for it.
I'm still pretty optimistic about MT when he returns, even if the New Orleans passing attack isn't exactly setting the world on fire. I think Thomas coming back will help change that a little bit. So you'll still be covered at wide receiver should you have the ability to move Lockett.
Yeah, and Michael Thomas, we're nearing the point he can come back. It's week 8.
Right.
So, if you get points from Lockett this week and then you trade him, you really only have to float week 6 and 7 if Michael Thomas comes back on time. So, I would definitely, if Lockett has a big game this week, try to move him for a running back.
100%. And depending on the level of running back, I'm not even opposed to a Ridley or Jefferson move, especially if you can get a good running back, like a top tier running back, and maybe just another depth receiver back as part of it, something like that. See, it's worth exploring.
Yeah, I think the back you'll get is better, but the price you're paying is higher, so it's it offsets. But I just don't trust Damian Harris is all it is.
But ultimately, we do agree you probably should try to move a piece for a running back.
Yes. Debo's production is not sustainable.
No, it is not sustainable.
I saw the prorated today. It's out of control. It's something like 2,000 yards, 1,960 yards, 12 touchdowns. Debo's a fragile dude, and he plays in a manner that lends itself to injury. Even if you don't believe in the injury prone thing, his play style lends itself to injury.
Correct.
He doles and receives a lot of punishment. So if you could trade him high, what running back could you get for him? I mean, let me see. What do you think for running back or wide receiver? I've hijacked your show.
No. That's why we have guests. See, we're in the boardroom. I'm the fantasy CEO. I'm in management, and a core tenet of management, I like to remind this to people, is surrounding yourself with people smarter than you, that know more than you, that can help guide you on the right paths. It's extremely critical to know that and to surround yourself with those people. That's what I try to do, and you're one of the brilliant people that I've chosen to surround myself with for this evening. So no, there's no hijacking of the show. This was by design. And I would not really probably look to swap him for another wide receiver, really. I mean, you probably got Debo as your wide receiver 4 on your team when you drafted him. So, in my opinion, no real value there. But if you can get a top 10 running back for him, yeah, do it. I mean,
a Spooks Jonathan Taylor manager, maybe?
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, if, after, kind of what's been a little bit of a yo-yo this year, I would happily make that move. If you have maybe a Nick Chubb owner a little down,
that would be nice. Those are all trades I would love to do, and something that's possible. I
think so.
Yeah, these who should I trade him for questions are always so hard because you want to look at your opponent's rosters and find somebody who would benefit having Debo Samuel. So that's the hard part is targeting a player and then finding a guy on their team that you would like. That's kind of how I do it.
It's so situation specific, but yeah,
exactly.
I mean, the core things are one, just know your league mates. Hopefully you have a good sense of the players they like, how they view teams, situations, etc. Number 2, checking the team. Those trying to fleece somebody deals never work. They make you look bad. They make your league mates angry. It's a waste of everybody's time. No need to go down that road. Go in with a good faith offer. find somebody who's struggling. Maybe they're somebody who drafted Robert Woods and Allen Robinson, and, well, they're really struggling at wide receiver. But, hey, maybe they were smart in terms of time. Maybe they drafted, they've hit on 3 running backs at this point, or they've had, one of those later running backs pop, or they have Patterson that has come in and just filled an additional flex need so they can afford to maybe give up a better running back in order to fix that wide receiver position. So it's very dependent. You got to put in a little bit of the work, but it'll pay off if you can pull off that type of move. So really just analyze the needs of your league mates' teams. That's really the key to getting it done.
That's where I always start, is what do my league mates need? Who needs Debo? And then I go from there.
But I think you have a good shot at going after a top 12, top 10 level running back.
Yeah, he's been out of control, and we have this image of him as this beastly man, so it's easy to trade him.
So we're starting to run a little late here.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to skip this final item on our agenda because it was some focused trade talk, but we just spent the last little bit with our fantastic viewers discussing trades. So I think we'll just kind of skip that for the moment and move on here so we can all get on with our evenings. I love y'all. My wife's going to be looking for me soon.
I know. My wife and I just had the walls painted, and we were working on putting up a bunch of stuff, and so I can hear her rumbling downstairs.
Thankfully, I've heard nothing yet, but I could get a knock on the door. So we're going to start to wrap things up here. Yeah, let everybody get on with their evenings, their weeks. I'm going to give you one little plug because I absolutely must, and that is a plug for our partner, Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. If you have not already signed up, please go sign up today. Please use code COLLECTIVE, KOLLECTIV. You will get a 100% deposit match up to $100, not this 10 or 25 like all these other daily sites like to do. They will give you a free $100 if you deposit $100. And every week, well, back up just a little bit. It's essentially prop parlays. You choose your favorite player props, combo anywhere from 2 to 5 of them, and you can get anywhere from triple to 10 times your money, depending on the way you combo them up. It is a lot of fun. Us all as fantasy players have a lot of these numbers in our mind already. Even if you don't know it, you're probably already doing a bit of research that is related to these props. So it's worth checking out. Go and make a deposit. Use code COLLECTIVE. And every Sunday morning, please be on the lookout for the post from the Fantasy Collective Twitter account that will include the Collective Core 4. 4 of our betting team members will provide you with 1 pick each. We do have Dynasty Bill FF, who is a perfect 4-0 on his prize picks so far this season. So come tail us, especially tail Bill, make some money. And now my plug is wrapped up. Go to prizepicks.com, code collective, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Jeff.
Oh man, I got plugs up the wazoo for you. So websites, footballabsurdity.com. We got new articles that go up every day, Monday through Friday. We got about 30 articles that go up there every week. We have a Twitch channel, twitch.tv/footballabsurdity. We have streaming shows every single day. When Twitch cooperates, sometimes Twitch doesn't cooperate. The Twitter is Jeff Krisko, Krisko. If you try to find the oil, it's not going to work out for you. Football Absurdity podcast every Friday. And then Reactionaries podcast, action movie podcast. If you like stupid action movies, you like the Reactionaries. We basically go through and crack jokes, figure out all the logical inconsistencies. That's with my buddy Joe Gruen, who I've been friends with since high school. That comes out every other week. This last week, we did a movie nobody's ever heard of, LAPD, To Protect and to Serve. And next week, we are doing for our spooky month, we call it Brawloween. We are doing Slender Man from 2018. Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun. That's wherever you can get podcasts, and we have a backlog of 60 movies that we've done so far.
All right, so that's a good catalog. So I'm not the
Yeah.
biggest action movie guy, but see, you're not just like playing the hits there, so to speak, in these movies, which I like. So I might actually have to go back and check a little more of that out.
Yeah, we kind of weave in and out of like big budget movies and these smaller movies. Like our favorite movies are made by this guy named Ron Marchini, who makes most of his movies at the docks in Stockton. But at the same
That's
time,
a choice.
but at the same time, our first 10 episodes were the Fast and Furious movies because my co-host had never seen them. So we kind of weave back and forth between
Okay.
like low budget, high budget. We spent all summer doing blockbusters. We called it the summer of blockbusters. So it's a lot of fun. There's
Well, in
something
summer,
there
that
for
makes
everybody.
sense.
Yeah, there's something there for everybody, and it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'm definitely gonna have to go back and check more of those out.
Yes. And one more plug for
Yes,
this show.
please.
Thank you for having me. I very much appreciate it. It was a lot of fun being on. I always love guesting. It's so much easier than hosting.
It really is. The feeling going into a show, knowing you're not necessarily responsible for running anything on the technical side in particular. That's actually really it. Not having to pay attention to these other particular aspects, and you can just focus on giving your takes, what everyone's here for. It's really nice. No, I love guesting, and also, if you bomb, well, it's the host audience. It's not yours. Who cares? That's also how I like to look.
You're
at it.
gone forever if you bomb. You just disappear into the ether.
This really was awesome.
Yeah.
I've been trying to work on my solo hosting here a little bit recently, or I probably would have asked you on a little sooner. As you know, I very much enjoy following you on Twitter, following your work, even though I'm not fully current on the Action Movies podcast. I'm so sorry.
Nobody is.
But
that was that was
anyways.
our pandemic project. That's just kind of
Gotcha.
still rolling on. Yeah.
And also very early on, I mean, a big reason you jumped near the top of the list early was my second guest ever was one Herms.
Oh,
And
great guy.
fantastic, my favorite. And following the episode, he said, "Hey, if you ever need another guest, definitely reach out to my boy Krisko." And then brought you up like 4 other times since then about like, "Hey, Krisko's the fucking man, and you should have him." So
Herms is
there's
gonna
love
make
up.
me blush.
he does that.
He's a great
No,
guy.
this is just been awesome. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you for
Yeah.
answering the tons of questions that we got from the audience. This was honestly a lot more fun with that additional interaction and engagement here from the viewers. So thank you guys very much. And with that, week 5 is here, baby. Week 5 is here. We have Rams Seahawks tomorrow. Thursday night is a strong matchup. It is going to set the stage for what's going to be one hell of a football week. We have had our return to normalcy, our market correction, so your big names are going to continue to eat. This is going to be a fun week, baby. Let's go.
Oh yeah. I'm hyped.
And with that, this meeting of the Fantasy Boardroom is